Great. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to DCE Serves. This is our annual virtual celebration highlighting the global impact of our incredible Harvard Extension Alumni Association family. Now, my name is Jill Felicio, and I'm the Director of Advancement here at Harvard's Division of Continuing Education and an alum of both our ALB and ALM programs. Now, as we get underway, I would encourage you all to use the chat box to say hello and to reflect, but hold your questions until the Q&A segment of our time together. Now, during the Q&A segment, we will invite you to raise your virtual hand to ask a question or briefly share an insight from your own experiences. And this presentation today is being recorded, will be fully captioned, and then posted on Harvard Extension School's YouTube channel. So I'm delighted to moderate today's conversation featuring 3 alums that are joining us to share insights on their nonprofit and volunteer leadership and to take your questions live. So please say hello to Lori Blewett ALM, class of 2018, Guillermo Hamlin ALB, class of 13, and Allison Ullrich ALM, class of 2022. So let's get started with introductions, and I'd invite Lori to get us going. Lori.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you. I'm so honored to be on this panel with all you all. I'm Lori Blewett. I graduated with my ALM in digital media design in 2018. And soon after I graduated, I started my current position that I have right now with St. David's Episcopal Church as their Director of Communications. And that is my current role. Thanks, Jill.
Fabulous. Let's go over to Guillermo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Guillermo Hamlin. I am ALB, class of 2013, and I'm currently a multimedia support specialist over at Tufts Technology Services. I also joined Allison in serving on the board of the HEAA, the Extension Alumni Association. Looking forward to expand on my other volunteer and nonprofit service with you all.
Fabulous. Thank you. Allison. You think you're muted. Oh. Technical difficulty. We'll figure it out.
There we go. Apologize. I'm Allison Ullrich, ALM 22. As Guillermo mentioned, I'm on the HEAA board. I've recently moved to San Francisco, and I also participate heavily in the Harvard Club here in the community, helping put together events and going to events and meeting some additional wonderful alumni. My current role is I'm a senior vice president for global supply chain. So I recently started that after graduating. And looking forward to discussing the topics and meeting all of you and talking more about serving and giving back. So thanks, Jill.
Fabulous. Now, generally, I know that some of you have been involved in your service efforts for years, if not decades. I wonder if anyone would like to reflect on, how your history and when the idea of service first became part of your day-to-day life and when you've made that leap. Allison, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. For me, serving and giving back, we were talking before the call started. It's something for me that started young. I think part of it was about the beliefs and practices that my family instilled in myself and my sisters. And part of that was enjoyable. And, when you're a little kid, you're like kind of, doing the general eye roll. But as you get older and you have that opportunity to reflect on those moments of serving and giving, you start to, I know when I was young, it was about realizing what you have access to versus what others may not. And it's also about the impact that provides, and it keeps you grounded and it gives you healthy perspective. And then as I evolved into my young adult years and as I've matured over the last 15 years, I realized the important, like, personal perspective of giving back for me started out as mentoring individuals in business. Doing it as part of my job or my responsibility was key, but I also realized there was this level of excitement and passion. And it just ignited this other opportunity and angle to realize I need to lean more into this. So that's really how I've grown involved into it over the last 12, 15 years. And then, it's also been about finding areas in which your passions align to, give back in a way that it's always enjoyable and you're around like-minded, individuals who also have, shared passions. So I've served for like the Greater Boston Food Bank, animal rescue leagues, um, you know, with the board, doing a lot of mentoring as well too, serving on clubs while I was in school. Because I think it's important to listen to others and share and also represent people that might not be able to. And it also just helps you learn overall. And some people really enjoy that because they might not feel ready or comfortable yet themselves. And you give them that opportunity to be supported and heard. And you ignite that not only within yourself, but also for other people. So.
That's
Thank you.
fabulous. Just kind of drilling into that for a second longer, you mentioned being involved as a student. Do you want to say a little bit more about your time as a Harvard Extension School student and what you were able to achieve then?
Sure. Yeah. I served, I started out from a serving perspective. I was on the management and finance club. I met one of the individuals, Ryan, who was running the club at the time, at an event. I was fortunate enough during my time for my management degree to actually, I lived in Cambridge for 15 years. So to have the school so close and to also be able to access and participate in the university and the institution was wonderful. And I met Ryan at one of the club events in a wintry January evening. And they had several people on the board for the club. And I told him, if you ever need anything, I'm here. I like doing that. You can see what other people's passions and interests are. And when you volunteer, it's always about that additional layer of providing and supporting others. It's what you do, and you opt to, enjoy that. And it is enjoyable for other people. And for me, going to school, it was so rewarding to go back in my later years of my career right now, because I remember my father was very adamant after I finished undergrad. He said, if you want to do, graduate school, I recommend you wait. I see people all the time in my company who come in like 2-3 years right after undergrad with, some type of graduate degree in tow as well too, but they don't have the experience to put the two together. And that sat on me and, really lived in my mind for a while. And then also it was really about timing and opportunity. And then having access and the capability to attend Harvard was, really just ticked all the boxes. And I realized when I started school, just the value of my work experience, and then how much more excited I was as an older individual going back for higher education. It enlightened me in the way in which I participated, what I chose to do, what I elected and looked at, and then how that allowed me to work deeper and collaborate with, my friends in my cohort and really enjoy it and really participate well to take full advantage of all of the services and resources that the institution has, and, collaborating with professors and staff. So I hope that's insightful.
That's marvelous. Thank you. And
Sure.
yeah, I think, each one of us can probably just relate to that. Studying at any point in life, I think just, yields just such important trajectory changes and pivots in thinking, and so much to add by, just, never, I think, earmarking one phase of life for education. I mean, that's silly. There's never an end to things to learn. Some of us are still pursuing degrees. Guillermo, can you talk a little bit about your time at Harvard and what you're studying now?
Sure. So at my time, at HES. I didn't volunteer as much as I should have. I did occasionally, but it wasn't more of the experiences I've had now, especially following HES. After HES, I began to volunteer more. I had moved to Somerville following graduating HES, and I was more open-minded to what was available. As previously mentioned, I sought volunteerism as a way to network, as a way to meet different people, but also to gain experience in areas that I had lacked. So I was willing to offer free labor, my time, to patiently learn something new. It was very helpful because it eventually allowed me to ease and transition into serving on the board of different nonprofits. One of them was the Community Action Agency of Somerville, where it's a CAP agency, also runs the Head Start programs for Somerville and Cambridge. And just graduating from college, it was a great experience because I had never served on a board before. Had no idea what development, aka fundraising for a nonprofit, was involved. I learned general financials. I learned what a 990 was. I learned basically the makings and the scaffolding of what a nonprofit entails, and it was very educational. And I'm glad I did it after my time at HES, because during my time at HES, I was just trying to get by. I was just trying to figure out my work-life balance. I was trying to figure out how to submit my homework on time. And I'm glad that my experience with HES was very comprehensive, and it helped me with my work-life balance. I was able to then insert and diversify my time and energy with volunteerism, which I think was a great supplement to my education at HES.
That's amazing. And, shout out to you, fellow ALB. I can't say enough about that diversity in courses in the ALB, and all of us were struggling to get by. I think every single one of us can cop to that. It was so hard to do a Harvard degree while working and managing family and life and everything along the way. I think we should all take a moment to just collectively applaud ourselves for that. It's so hard. And I think who gets it better than like folks in the room, but pivoting, that time as a student and turning that into, still educational skill set building and board work is amazing. I mean, what better way to learn about a nonprofit than to join a board? And that's something I think can be very intimidating, and where do you begin? But I love the approach that you took in expanding, your network and your connections. And I think in many ways, I would imagine friendship in entering into that line of service. And with that said, Lori, can you talk a little bit about your beginnings and, sort of what volunteering has brought you, I think, professionally and personally?
Sure, absolutely. So I'd say my introduction to service is a little bit different than what Allison's experience was. I grew up in a military family, so the word service had a different meaning to me. And so I learned about that type of giving professionally, that was a vocation. And also my mom was, she owned a couple different restaurants. And so that was also another connotation of service. And so it wasn't until high school when I actually understood this concept of community service and giving service that way. And I became involved in Key Club in high school and became a state lieutenant governor and helped to organize a lot of different projects and things. And then as I got into college, continued that service-minded work and looking for those communities. And so I was participated in Circle K International. And then, I think once you understand service and giving of yourself and seeing the impact that you have just directly with people and building those relationships, there's nothing that can really replace that feeling of being able to be a companion to someone in wherever they are in their space and the things that they need. And so I think like what Allison was saying is like, if you find and align places that that speak to you, right? I was fortunate to be able to work in student affairs in here in Austin, and started a project, a 10-year project, and starting partnerships, and just understanding that consistency is really important. And, you know, small works of service, and, you know, as many hours as you can put, or service projects, and just continuing to be available and to participate, to see that transition from the beginning of a project to the final 10th year, and seeing how a space, a community space, can be transformed by so many hours of work with a collective group was really impactful for me. And we were awarded an award from Keep Austin Beautiful for partnering with the Austin Parks Foundation for community involvement, because the premise of that project was it was Project Build a Park. And when you build a park, you can build a community. And I think going into my other work areas and ways to serve is it's always been about community. And after I graduated from the extension school and soon found myself serving on the HEAA board here in the Texas chapter. And that has really been instrumental in just continuing to develop relationships. And I think that's a really important part of service, is the relationships, and just finding like-minded people to talk with, especially during the pandemic and things like that. So that's where it started, and then through my career and in school, and then now I find myself at I never thought I'd work at a church, but here I am working in a faith-based institution, which essentially operates as and is a nonprofit. And so, like what Guillermo is saying, is you really learn what it is about serving in those capacities when you don't have unlimited resources. And I've found that not only do they have causes and challenges in the community that we start to address, but we can take our skills and those strengths that we've developed and put those to use to help in the community and serve in that way. And so serving in my job, I feel like while I don't have a lot of outside community service, I feel like my role here at the church has really helped to foster and create awareness, and to just really get the word out on, you know, social justice issues, and, you know, as a church that's celebrating its 175th year, we looked back at some of the work that we had done, and we're still serving meals, we're still providing shelter. And so there's a big umbrella of ways to serve, and ways that we can find to serve. So it's been a very exciting and very meaningful work for me. So I enjoy it.
Oh, that's amazing, Lori. Thank you. And I love what you said. I mean, it's all about community. It is. I mean, it's all about people. It's all about impact. It's all about relationships and meaning. And I thank you personally for all the work that you've done to bring our Texas community together in the Harvard Extension School Alumni Association. It's been incredible to watch that chapter grow and flourish, and those relationships in Texas just get stronger and stronger. It's amazing. And we were just there. Dean Coleman and I visited Dallas 2 weeks ago and saw kind of the effort of that chapter build, Lori, that you've put in Texas, just shine bright that night with other members of the Harvard Club of Dallas leadership joining us, the Harvard Business School Association of Texas joining us. And it was just a wonderful celebration of community. And it was all about a shared love of learning, a shared love of Harvard, and a kinship as a Harvard family. So it was really beautiful. And you know, Guillermo, I want to kind of probe back into the work that you've done since graduation, and particularly interested in hearing more about the Harvard Latino Alliance, a very big mobilized action, interesting group. here in the Harvard alumni community. Can you say a little bit about your time and experience in that group?
Sure. So before I served the HEAA board, I was previously involved in the Harvard Latino Alumni Alliance, which was a shared interest group, also known as the SIG, in the Harvard Alumni Association volunteer group circles. And the purpose of this organization, which I have to give credit to the founding president, Ed Rocha, as well as Shirley Cardona. These were people that were college students that felt that the university-wide initiatives towards Latino students have been lackluster. Being myself from Latin America, growing up in the United States, I had like one foot in being an immigrant, like Latin American immigrant, to being one foot into the first generation mindset, having grown up here in the United States. And I too found it a little lonely being Latino in Harvard, let alone adding the added dimension of the extension school. So when I was looking to get involved, when I was looking to volunteer, and I saw that the Alumni Alliance was looking for alums to participate, roll up their sleeves, I immediately shot an email to them and wanted to get started in what eventually became a very successful university-wide shared interest group, also known as a SIG, that also became a 501c3 nonprofit. And what I really appreciate about the work that this SIG had done was it had done a lot of work on campus. So it was a way for alumni to give back to Latino students, current Latino students at the college, at the extension school, at all the graduate schools. We even had certain events off campus. There was something called Thanksgiving Pachanga, where basically adding some context, sometimes there were students that couldn't afford to fly back home to celebrate Thanksgiving with their family. So what we did and the organization did was we would hold Thanksgiving at the house of then President Ed Rocha's house in the city of Malden. And this brought forth alumni, students, and it allowed for like a familial setting for students to basically celebrate a holiday without needing to rely on spending too much money on a flight back home. That would be a financial burden to their family, financial burden to themselves. And it really allowed for not just the promotion of the organization, not only enhancing the visibility of what we're able to do to help them, but it was a good way to encourage these students to become future civically minded alumni to themselves help students as well. Because there are areas of university affairs that affect Latinos. This is one of them. And the only way to really establish and perpetuate this sort of service is to demonstrate that service. So we thought that that was a very good way to capture the university, its community among Latino students, and as the way we view it, future alumni. Another thing that we've since moved on is we're trying to increase institutional attention in campus. So if there are initiatives with other university groups, other SIGs that we can sign on to demonstrate that how we feel about the retention of Latino candidates, whether they're undergrad or graduate, areas involving tenured faculty, even administrative, if need be. One big initiative, one big goal is we've been looking to promote Latino alumni in the areas of, say, university leadership. So if they're running for the alumni board, if they're running for I think last year we had a candidate for the board of overseers. These are us thinking big, and we like to promote, maintain this national network of Harvard Latino alumni for events, whether it be out in Southern California. We have a chapter out there. I was very involved in the Greater Boston chapter. there is a thriving chapter in Texas. And we are looking to establish this network because we want to be able to maintain the involvement of our alumni to the campus. And I think that that comes with a lot of work. It happened around 2015, and then it has since been successful till now. And it is still an active SIG. We're still looking for people to get involved. We're still looking for volunteers. We're still looking for people to host virtual events. I have served on the board, so I am term limited in my tenure. I took a beat, but now I'm serving on the HEAA board. And I look forward to bridging these two organizations because I think that there's a lot that overlaps. The Harvard Extension School is very representative of a lot of Latino students. The college has a lot of Latino students. Every graduate school has a representative of some form of Latino student or alumni or future alumni. And it was a very meaningful act of service to give back to my constituent alma mater in this area because I felt like it was lacking. And while being Latino is itself diverse, it is very interesting to see the wide variety of talent we have on the university and to resource that through an alumni group. And it was very exciting. And I hope to bring that experience serving on that board to benefit the Harvard Extension Alumni Association Board. Thank you.
That's fabulous. And we are so very lucky to have you. Thank you for all that you've done to bring that effort forward. And it's ever iterating and growing and strengthening. And it is just amazing. So, Lori, you looked like you wanted to jump in on that one. Did you want to say anything in particular?
I did. I just, I think sometimes when we think about service, it's like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have whatever it is. And then, so just thinking about the mindset of, well, what can I do? And so, after I graduated, I, figured out the different SIGs that I would be interested in. And one of them was the Harvard Asian Americans Alumni Alliance. And then so you just get on the emails and you see when they have different events and you see what works with your schedule. And earlier this year, I was able to go on a Zoom with the writers of Joyride, the movie. And I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it was really interesting, like what Guillermo was talking about, just with representation. And that really, I loved that kind of type of involvement because it talked about representation. It also talked about, they're giving their of service to share with other alumni, and then they asked, well, what can we do? And we can still go and watch the movie, support and represent. And so while right now in my season of work and family life with 2 young kids, I don't have a lot of extra time. And so we find ways to give back through our choices with, things that we buy and things that we do. And so I think there's a way to support representation and support alumni and to give service in that way. So I just wanted to just throw that as a different way to look at service.
I love that. Thank you for that. And yes, the shared interest groups at the Harvard Alumni Association have been just so incredible to bring together that shared love, the interest, the passion, the affinity. And Harvard is such a big place. And it is, each, for lack of a better expression, Harvard has one called each tub on its own bottom, which is really internal vernacular for just how, siloed this campus can be, because every student at every Harvard school has a very unique school experience, and they don't necessarily understand the rest of the university. It's a big place. It's a diverse place. Harvard Extension School also is a very individual place at times, where you're head down doing a thesis, or you're working and you're barely looking sideways, blinders on, can't read a book for fun. You have too much work to do. So finding time to make these connections and to bridge those gaps is very difficult. And I think, personally from my work here at Harvard, my biggest challenge as, an alumni director in this world of alumni directors at Harvard is getting everybody to understand where we can build cohorts. Let's find commonalities. It's not just your academic program. It's, the ways that you're impacting the world, the interest levels, the bridges. And it's been amazing to have the SIGs, these Harvard Alumni Association SIGs, develop global relationships. And, I think what we at Harvard Extension have really spent a lot of time doing is giving regional focused attention through our HEAA chapters, bringing Harvard to our regions with our largest populations, extending campus there, boots on the ground, really bringing the dean, bringing the leadership, having volunteers on the ground, having events, because communities matter. Being with your school population of alumni in your community matters. Being part of your Harvard Club is an anchor and it matters. And generally, Harvard Clubs, another institutional network that are around the world, are anchor points for Harvard. So if you're traveling, check in with that Harvard Club, go to their events. If you have the opportunity to be in a shared interest group, join. If you want to be on a board of a Harvard Club, please do it. They're looking for that leadership, whether you're in city or global in a shared interest group. There is a way to plug in at any stage of life. And one thing I think, again, I'm going to go back to Allison on this. I wondered through the threads of what Lori and Guillermo just said was about kind of where to begin and how to make something big feel actionable. And it's interesting, I think, again, like, how do you make something that feels too big, too daunting, too scary? I mean, in our world of war, and climate change and health challenges, like, where do you begin? And how do you make it manageable?
For me, I've always been one to rise up and take on more challenge. I think part of it is understanding and taking that time, at a personal level to journal and catalog what your passions and purposes are. I do sit down once a year and do that to understand how I want to develop and adapt and grow over the next 12 months. It's a personal check-in, but at the same time, it allows me to understand what changed and shifted for myself, over the last year or several years. And I think if you're always doing that gives you that opportunity to know who you are, to understand what you're capable of doing for yourself, how you support others, and, build that community or be a part of a community. So that's my baseline. And then as far as, an idea or an opportunity to give back or be involved in groups to be challenging, I think that's typically the first mindset that holds people back from thinking, I don't have anything to provide or give. And that is quite the opposite for all of us, actually. The way I've looked at it and experienced it has more to do with my involvement in business. When you start having those opportunities in leadership come to life, and all of a sudden, people always say they want this job, this title, this money, and every single time greater and greater responsibility comes with that. So you have to continually adapt and develop yourself. And it's also about keeping your ego in check, because you want to surround yourself with people that are not only like-minded, but are also challenging you. And when you make that decision to volunteer or serve your community, and whether it's a board or volunteering, you actually have to remove that shroud of I matter and I'm important, because you're also with other people who are equitable to you at virtually no salary or title level. And they're also doing this because their passion to give back and that energy exists. So, I think that's typically the piece that holds people back, is saying, I don't have time, I don't have anything to give. And I know for myself, I volunteered during the pandemic for a nonprofit, Get Us PPE. I remember very early on, I was, like most people, I was watching the news, and I actually I was scared like everybody was. But the biggest thing that I was concerned about, I was fortunate to have a job, I had my health, I was in school, my family and my friends were safe. And the thing that kept me up at night was, what can I do for this? It bothered me. And I realized, like, I don't feel like I'm supporting or giving. And I want to figure out what to do. And so I found a multitude of groups, and I thought, I will give and support however I can. And, you know, clearly there was an overwhelming need, and so many people were reaching out across a multitude of entities. And it was hard to find an option that actually needed somebody, because everybody was wanting to help. And so I think it's about understanding, I want to be part of the greater good in the group, to give and to learn, again, to support people that think that they don't have a voice. And I think it also gives people that, it resonates with people to realize, maybe I can do that. And, you know, I those are the different layers of challenges beneath the surface level statement of a challenge to this. You know, because it's, for me, it's always about, if I'm always hungry, I'm always going to be rewarded in enjoying what I do. It's not just about what I'm doing for work. It is what I'm doing in my community. And I think it's hearing and understanding, like, what that internal voice is about, what makes me happy. And part of that is finding that challenge, and how you yield that out to others through work or volunteering, you know, service at the military level, in like for churches, or like I even served on my condo association board. It's about giving people the support and voice that they don't have. And any place you can start is better than nothing, because again, most people think that they don't have something to provide, but we actually all do. And if you just try that one time, it's like deciding to go back to school. The first class is the hardest. And then all of a sudden you realize how enjoyable it is, and how much of a different challenge, which was something that you weren't even expecting. So I hope that helps.
That's lovely. So well said, honestly. And thank you for sharing that perspective on the pandemic. Yeah, that was something I think that's very relatable. And you were studying at that time, knee deep, in your Harvard work, which I'm sure presented its own challenge. So just amazingly inspirational, all of you. And actually, it's interesting when they run surveys on the Harvard alumni community worldwide, what people are doing professionally and in their volunteer efforts. More than half of Harvard alumni either work or give their time in nonprofit or community service, which is a stunning amount of people trying to make the world a better place. And there's many, many, many of you on with us today that we'd love to hear from. So, you know, we would invite all of you, if you would like to, you know, turn on your camera, raise your hand. If anybody wants to say hello or to share something that you're working on, or a problem, a question, a pain point, it's all welcome. So feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to keep yammering on. No. Nice to see all your faces, by the way. Aw, look at all the smiles. Hi, Gwen. Hello.
Hello. It's good to see you, Jill, and everybody. Something that I just wanted to bring to light is the homeless pandemic that we currently have. Jill, I think I may have mentioned to you, I may not have mentioned to you, but I've been homeless 4 times, starting at the age of 14. And I recently just did a documentary, and something I'd like to point out, we're actually going to be screening the documentary at the Kennedy School, the School of Design, and the Chan School of Public Health. And we really hope to screen it to this group and any other student groups that are interested. But the biggest thing I wanted to talk about today is simply that before COVID, 40% of the American population was 1 paycheck away from homelessness. Post-COVID, according to a Charles Schwab Modern Wealth Survey, 59% of the American population is just 1 paycheck away. So I do hope all of you will watch it. Our website is ifitcouldhappen.com, and I'll put that in the chat. But please, you know, sign up if you want to watch it. We can do private screenings for anybody that's involved with any type of civic organizations. We focus on 11 cities in the East Coast of the United States. but we can do Zoom screenings wherever. So thank you all so much for your service. You've been very inspirational today, and I really appreciate you putting this together, Jill. Thank you.
Wow, Gwen. Yeah, we'd love to have a screening of that. So let's talk offline. That's incredible. Thank you for that good work. And such a problem. So it's incredible. All right. So I'm going to go in the order of my screen. No other democratic way to do it. But Gregory. Hi.
Hello. I just wanted to share my interests. I'm in the ALM program for data science, and I'm hoping to apply the techniques of machine learning and artificial intelligence to problems in medicine. And looking at that broadly, also epidemiology and psychiatry and all these things. And I have a question because we have such an experienced panel here. Can you give me some insight into what you think the pros and cons are of working in the nonprofits as your career, or working, for a for-profit corporation, especially in terms of, work-life balance, and also, living a life that actually has an impact, and all these sorts of millions of characteristics that might be interesting.
I'm happy to share my experience working at multiple nonprofits. You have to wear multiple hats. That is for sure. And in my particular role in communications, I think it's really important to have a strong communications plan, because you want to build awareness and to spread the word about whatever the cause is, because it's great to have volunteers. It's also great to have the funding to be able to do what your particular group needs to do. So whatever projects there are, activities, always make sure to have some sort of recording, documentation, pictures, quotes, to share some of the stories and why the work that you're doing is important and impactful, and how it is received in the community, and to share that in alumni groups, on social media, in other communities. So that's just a little perspective from me in communications and my nonprofit work.
And I'm willing to jump in a little bit on that. Everything Lori said, I co-sign. It's a very difficult question, because a lot of nonprofit work is mission oriented. And when you're mission oriented, you're more than willing, unless it's like a very well-funded nonprofit. If it's more like a 50C4 or some sort of political action committee, you have to get comfortable with a lot of uncompensated work. So the thing about wearing many hats is you are, in some way, shape, or form, you're allowing for uncompensated work. You are opting in for a salary with no bonuses. You're opting in for long hours and salary, not hourly. And you have to be willing to accept that fixed compensation, so to speak. If you are mission oriented, if you genuinely believe in the mission of that organization, you have the likelihood to do something you couldn't otherwise do, which is to focus on resolving the issues that the mission is directing its attention to. So it's very difficult. You have to make your own cost benefit analysis. You have to figure out your own financial break-even point. Otherwise, you're in a world of hurt. And this is someone who I'm pursuing, or I have done a lot of nonprofit work, volunteer and as an employee. And you have to really just understand what it is you're going into. You have to be very comfortable with asking for money as well. You have to fundraise. It's something that's not entirely spoken, but if you want a successful nonprofit, fundraise. Get comfortable asking for money on the phone, email blasts. It's just the nature of running an organization such as that, because you need to be able to fund your operations in order to meet your mission statement. And I think that's all I have to really say. You just have to determine your mission and accept whatever sacrifices that you're willing to take to pursue that mission.
I would, as somebody who's currently not employed with a nonprofit, but volunteering in different vignettes for them, I actually find myself checking in the last few years into the feeling and understanding the idea of my interests in passion to volunteer is really great. But at the same time, I think it's a lot like what Gwenna just mentioned on the chat, which is it's about understanding as you get older where you want to invest and provide your time. And I think our capabilities in our personal and our professional lives to give and serve nonprofits is really important, because you're bringing these experiences to people, and anybody. You can do it. You can provide. You can support. They are wonderful challenges, and I found myself more often in the last couple of years when I look at where I want to go in my career. I find myself actually thinking and seeking out, what my next couple steps or pathways would be, and I actually find myself saying, I would love to take on that new type of challenge, like Jill had mentioned, of, finding a nonprofit to actually work for. When you start finding those avenues of volunteering to be consistent, and again, it's a personal approach and experience, but it's really about, for me, it's come up more and more to the surface, and I become more and more selective with my time, but I'm also very selective now as I've, with the volunteering that I've done, about where it is I do get involved, because some people are just like so hungry and craving to like put, 3, 4, or 5 boards and volunteering experiences on their LinkedIn or resume every year. And, it's about sharing that space with others globally, and then understanding what is aligned with you, but also how you can give back. And so I think with what Lori and Guillermo have done and what they are doing, for me, I think it's about more of a psychological or philosophical challenge of, I see it to be a really great challenge to consider going into nonprofits as part of my career now. Because hearing and learning what other people are doing, experiencing what we do for the HEAA board, and just also listening to a lot of my friends and peers from school, it's very commendable, but at the same time, it's like that new layer of challenge to consider, because I think they both have wonderful tie-overs to one another.
Yeah, I just wanted to tie into what Allison said about, I think a couple questions ago, about really checking in with yourself and understanding what you have to give, what time you have, what skills, and what talents. And I think for me, one of the big challenges for me is that I want to do all the things. I am so passionate about all the things, and I found myself spread very thin. And I think one of the biggest questions, like Allison said, is to just check in with yourself. Like, what do you have to give? And if you have this much time, and do you want to, help assemble some, personal bags for those who are currently unhoused, like some toiletry bags? Is that something that you want to do to just put some of those things together? Or do you have a little bit more time where you can serve on a board? Or can you, I don't know, call some of the people in your community? I think it's getting a pulse of what is it that you can offer, and then finding those areas, those opportunities that align with where your passions are, with what you have to offer. And also just knowing that maybe not right now, but maybe thinking ahead to, once I clear some things off in my life right now, some of these projects pass, then maybe next year or the year after, and building on that, I think, is also really important.
Love that. Just to add to that, like really selfishly, from my perspective in nonprofits, I've spent 25 years or so in nonprofits and really found I think like a kinship among the kind of team-oriented, mission-driven, values-driven, creative. And it's been a really fun experience in education and environmental advocacy. I now know every bird song and owl call and every element of my own career. I think I've taken some good personally from it, but I also, thanks to Harvard Extension School and what I do at DCE, know that like your career should be careers. And never say never. Careers can change and flow and grow. And I feel less boxed in to a career identity because of my time here at DCE. And again, it's like never say never. And we change so much as humans over the course of a lifetime. And it's, I think, again, like nice to bring those experiences back to better your own life and to better your own family and experience. So nonprofits will give you probably better vacation time, more schedule flexibility. That's important to me, having a family. And again, it's, my kids will grow and they'll leave the house and then I have much more free time. What then? So again, it's life is cyclical, but I love that question, Gregory, and thank you, panelists, for fabulous answers. Kelly, you've been super patient, so feel free to unmute. Oh, we got to get you off mute. I love your sweatshirt.
There we go. Okay. Hey there. So it's really instructive for me to hear the common experiences that we all have. It's in this notion of service. So just to kind of get to the point, I was successful in business and thus have a fair amount of money. And with that money, I've always believed that, with that kind of success, there comes a lot of responsibility. And for us who have gone through whatever programs we have at Extension or at Harvard College, it came home to me, one, by virtue of the privilege of being at Harvard, and two, the inspiration from my colleagues there, that great responsibility was something that was just simply not a slogan if you're successful or not otherwise, really, but really a duty. And I, really began to believe in this notion of veritas, that's on the. So I'm, as it turns out, what's called an executive in residence and a lecturer at Cal State Monterey Bay. And that university is interesting in this particular way. Its business college of business, has stated publicly its platform as one of responsible business. And the basis of responsible business is what's often called the quintuple bottom line: people, planet, profit, ethics, and equity. And it applies not only to regular business, that is to say, businesses we know, large and small, but also to nonprofits, from my point of view. I'm lucky enough also to have studied at Oxford, so I have a perspective on business and how it's done in Europe. And nonprofits are quite different there. Of course, there are social services and advantages that make people more secure in their positions, and they pay much better than, of course, what we do in the United States. So, so that sector is quite active from a long-term perspective, and long-term perspective is really what we advocate for in responsible business. That a balance between employees, between the community, between the environment, remunerating our natural resources, for example, understanding our impact, and profit is one way of getting there. But rather than pushing this up to shareholders, rather than how do you say, being worried about quarterly reports and the stock market price, instead to take those profits and distribute them more evenly between stakeholders. Stakeholders meaning those who have stake in the success of the business. More than that, so how I got to this point was partly through some individuals at Harvard Business School. I didn't go to Harvard Business School, of course, but who are inspirational, but at Oxford as well, where there's a very, very big presence for this, both at the Skoll Center for Social Responsibility, as well as at Said Business School. And so through that, and in concert with CSUNB, we've been giving money for our largely Hispanic first degree and their families, earners, for scholarships. I've been volunteering time, as my spouse has, at CSUNB, to counsel students, to mentor students as well, to understand these principles of responsible business and how they can make a difference in perhaps what is one of the most influential entities in our society in general, and that is business, right? And who else can make this kind of difference in where we need to go as a society, and to get us out of this problem of climate change that we're facing, than business. Every day, the pursuit of both from a profit standpoint as well as the for-profit area, business areas, firms, if they change the way they view what to do with profits, can actually make a huge impact in our society. And so that's the kind of the areas that not only have been volunteering in, so I do get paid when I teach, but there's probably an equivalent, if not more, hours involved in just volunteering with student groups, with local organizations, with our community, to better our circumstances. And that comes directly, not only from my own belief system, but also encouraged by my time at Extension, as well as at Oxford as well. And so that's about it. Thanks.
Wow. That's a lot. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and for the hope and the promise and the work that you're doing, and that it will scale. It's fantastic. Let's see.
Thank you.
Kokila, am I saying that right? Feel free to correct me.
Yeah,
but...
I'm Kokila. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just want to share quickly about what I'm doing. I'm an obstetric anesthesiologist, and I'm in Iowa. And what I do is actually, it's not exactly a nonprofit, but I have a grant, a federal grant, through which I have built a mobile simulation unit. My team has built this, and we go through all the rural parts of Iowa to some of the more less resource rural hospitals. And we go there and we teach best practices in obstetrics through simulation. So that's just it's an awesome experience to go and try to make sure that the care that our rural moms get is standardized, and it's the best possible standardized care. And that's something that I'm doing. And what I've learned is that there's so much health inequities, especially among the rural and urban populations. And there's a lot of homelessness. And there are these young mothers who just come to the emergency room just to deliver and then to go out with a newborn, and they don't have a place to stay. And so we are trying our best to give our, the best clinical care possible for these mothers. So what I've learned in this, taking this on, is that oftentimes when you take on a project, you just do not know what kind of challenges or what kind of needs are going to be, that you're going to encounter. So what I would like to advise is that, to go with an open mind and be resilient in your project plans, so that, whatever the different needs that come about, you're able to meet those. So oftentimes a project is not the same as what you started. Your vision and mission may change by the time you come to the end of your project, maybe look completely different, but it would be successful and it would meet the needs that are required. So my take and my advice is always, be open-minded, be flexible, be willing to change, be resilient, and that will create sustainability for whatever you decide to do. So that's my little take. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share.
That's beautiful. And it's just such heart and just passion. It's incredible. I mean, that is just heroic, honestly. What a good place to end is on that note of fearlessness and passion. It's amazing. I want to thank all of you who shared the work that you're doing and, asked, the hard questions. Our panelists, you're fabulous. You did such a great job sharing all that you're doing and inspiring us all. Is there any last words among our panelists? You're invited, please. Anything we missed or you want to share as parting words?
Just to find the need and find in your heart how you'd like to serve to help be part of the solution.
Just to take good inventory of your time, allocate that time, and be willing to do the work, especially if you're seeking to do more and volunteer more.
And I would say, if you haven't volunteered yet, sit down and really map out that opportunity and really consider it to do it at least once, because it's like anything. If you don't take the risk, you never know. And you haven't been there and you haven't tried it. And what you'll find out is the level of personal joy and reward will grow and strengthen on top of anything else that it provides back to your life, your friends, your family, and work. But I recommend everybody give it at least one shot. And I think you'll realize how enjoyable and exciting it is.
Oh, love that. Very well said, panel. And with that, everyone, take good care. Please rely on each other, utilize that Harvard network, explore opportunities, and let us know in our office here at Harvard how we can help share the good work that you're doing. So please keep in touch. We would love to share outwardly all of this amazing details of the work we heard today. So take good care and join us again soon. Happy holidays and stay safe, everybody.